Hello, my name is Lauren James and I am an accredited practicing dietitian and advanced sports dietitian. Today I want to talk to you about weight loss. It's one of those topics that is certainly hotly debated and certainly can be very hard to achieve for some people. So I wanted to give you a few tips from my personal experience with plenty of clients over time, including athletes. So I've dedicated my career to performance. So improving performance through nutrition. So whether that's an elite athlete who is aiming for a gold medal, right down to just the average Joe who might want to get off 5 kilos, or maybe it's 45 kilos. But I think some of those performance strategies that we often use can be really helpful for the everyday person. It's not just something we use with elite athletes. Because in life, we also want to perform. We want enough energy for our general daily activities. We want to be able to enjoy our family time, our social time. We want to kick some goals at work maybe. And maybe you've got some physical goals that you want to achieve too. Whether that's just getting off the couch and doing some exercise for the first time in a few years, whether it's toning up a certain part of the body, or maybe it's smashing that fun run that you've always thought that you wanted to do. So let's talk weight loss. Now, on paper, for some people, it can be quite easy. And in fact, I've got a piece of paper that I would like to show you. So up the top here, we have a very simple equation. If we have more energy going out, so in terms of our physical activity over the day, and maybe the daily activities that we might do, walking down to the shops or taking the kids to school, those sort of things. If we have more of that energy output than we do input, so input being the foods and drinks that we eat every day, then we may achieve weight loss. Now, if we change that equation and look at the weight gain side of things, if we have more energy coming in terms of foods and drinks, and less coming out in terms of output, then we might gain weight. Now, maybe that weight gain is body fat, and that may or may not be a good thing for some people, but that weight gain may also be muscle mass gain, and that may be quite positive for someone's body composition and metabolic rate. Now, if we've got it fairly even, if we've got an equal amount of energy coming in as well as energy going out, then we will maintain our weight. The scales typically will stay pretty much the same, stable, when we weigh ourselves. Now, we're going to focus on the top equation. So on that piece of paper, it certainly looks quite easy, but the reality is that most people find it much more difficult than that. But the things I want you to take out of that little equation are that our movement over the day does have an impact on our ability to lose weight, as does what we consume, what we put in our mouth each and every day. First of all, let's look at the energy output side of the equation. Now, you might be someone who is really keen on exercise. You love going to the gym or going for a run. Maybe you play some team sports socially. Maybe you play at quite a high level. And that's fantastic. You will certainly be burning up fuel as you perform those activities. But if you're not much of an exerciser, you don't really enjoy it, maybe you're time poor and struggle to get enough exercise time, or maybe you've got some sort of physical impairment that makes it fairly difficult for you to do much exercise, that doesn't mean that you can't lose weight. We just have to factor in that balance of the equation. If we don't have as much output, then we can't have as much input. But similarly, for those people that have a high amount of activity in their day, we need to make sure that they have adequate energy coming in through foods and drinks, but also that we don't have too much. Just because we're exercising a lot doesn't then give us permission that we can eat as much as we like or whatever we like, particularly when it comes to weight loss, if that's our goal. Now, when it comes to the energy input side of the equation, our foods and drinks that we consume do make a difference. So we are talking about all the things that you eat in the day. Now, research would show that most people are pretty good at being able to recall what they eat at a mealtime. So if I was to ask you what you're eating for breakfast, you probably can give me a fairly good indication of what that would be. Cereal, toast, eggs, whatever it might be. But what the research does show is that people's ability to recall their snacks or things that they eat other times of the day, not quite so good. Sometimes it's an unconscious motion, so food going into the mouth, and we don't necessarily realize that it's even happening. Maybe we walk past the cookie jar and something just goes in our mouth. Maybe we have the habit of picking things off our kids' plates and just happening to go in our mouth as well. And we don't tend to think about those things quite as much. The other time that people tend to not be quite as good at recalling is maybe on the weekends when we have more unscheduled eating for at least some people. So those more social events where we might be at a barbecue or someone else's house and we have quite a few nibblies before we even get to the main meal. For other people, it might be that they're eating out more, they're having more social time, maybe it's more takeaway. So those are all things that are important for you to be careful of because they may be contributing to your energy input. The other area that I'd like to highlight is your drinks. So what you're consuming in terms of fluids over the day. Water is always going to be your best choice, but other drinks, things like soft drinks or juices or iced teas or even things like teas and coffees can contribute to your energy intake over the day. If you're someone that tends to have more of the milky type coffees, an iced latte for example, they're brilliant for you. There's no problem drinking them. Milk is a good source of calcium. There's nutrients that we're getting out of those drinks, but they do contribute calories as well. So maybe keep it to 1 or 2 in the day. And the other fluid that we do need to consider in our energy intake equation is alcohol. Alcohol does pack a punch, and while it can be very social and certainly it can be nice for all of us to have a drink maybe on a Friday night, we do need to be careful of the calories that we're consuming in terms of alcohol. Not only does the alcohol itself have the calories, but also what you might mix with the alcohol, and the nibblies that go along with those drinks also may pack a punch. Now, all of that might sound fairly simple and things you might already know. So let's get into a little bit more of the fancy weight loss equation. Now, when it comes to diets, there's certainly no shortage of diets that available. You Google the word diet and you're certainly going to get a lot of hits. You pick up a magazine and there is always some sort of new diet that you could try. But which one's right for you? Well, the answer to that is actually the one that you will follow. Sounds simple, but the research does actually back up that statement. And in fact, I'll post a link onto this video of that particular piece of research that I'm referring to, but I will go through it with you briefly. They did a really nifty piece of research where they actually looked at a few different diet types and they called it the most effective diet, which is a pretty effective name, I think, as well. It certainly catches attention. So what they actually looked at, they got a whole bunch of people in this study and they divided them between the diet types. And they followed them over a period of time and looked at what their weight loss was. And what they actually found was it did not matter which diet type they followed, whether it's high protein, whether it was more balanced, whether it was more a vegetarian style diet, it actually didn't make any difference. What was most effective was the diet that somebody actually followed and followed in the long term. So what I would like to encourage you to do is find a diet style or a style of eating that you can keep up in the long term. If you find a diet that you might be able to keep up for a week or 2, or maybe it's even more effective than that, maybe you do it for a whole 8-week challenge at a gym, or maybe it's leading up to a wedding or a family reunion where it's really important for you to look good on that day, so you're quite motivated to get some weight loss happening. Which is fantastic. All of those are great goals, but you have to be able to keep it up in the long term. So what are some strategies? What are some ways that you can eat that actually play to your strengths? If you're someone that really likes meat, then having a little bit more protein in the diet might be quite effective for you. But if you're someone that really struggles to get meat in each and every day, then that may not be the diet type for you. So how do you find out which diet type is the most effective for you? As a dietitian, I'm probably going to encourage you to use a professional. So just like you would see a personal trainer who'd write a specialized exercise program for you that gives you the best results, or maybe you go to Pilates and you've got some injuries, and so they write a program for you that is best for your body type. Or if we use another example, when you go to the hairdresser, a good hairdresser is going to ask you what you like about your hair and what also you don't like. What do you want to be able to do with your hair over the next 6 to 8 weeks? A dietitian is exactly the same. We are going to help you design and find a diet type or a way of eating that is helpful for you, that plays to your strengths and is actually going to be effective in the long term. But if you're not interested in seeing a dietitian, and that's perfectly fine, you can do some of the experimentation yourself. So maybe you have a look at some simple changes that you can make every day. So a couple of things that I would usually highlight if I'm seeing someone for the first time and their goal is some sort of weight loss, is I will be asking them about the types of foods that they like to eat. What do you enjoy? Now, some people will find that having some more carbohydrate in the diet, maybe some more grains, fruits, some of the vegetables, maybe like potato and sweet potato and corn, makes them feel really good, gives them plenty of energy, keeps their mood nice and stable, they feel good when they have them, then great. Let's use those foods. Now, it's probably sensible that we don't give you a massive portion of some of those, particularly if we're trying to lose weight. But really that portion size comes down to how much activity you are doing. If you're someone that is limited on time, limited on your physical ability, maybe you're only getting in 20 minutes a couple of times a week, then we're not going to give you as much carbohydrate as someone that's doing maybe training for a half marathon and they're doing a couple of hours of training at least a couple of days a week. Makes sense. If we think about the analogy of a car is always a good one. So if we wanted to drive 100 kilometers down the road, we need to put enough fuel in to last that 100 kilometers. Our body is exactly the same. We need to put the right amount of fuel in for the distance we expect to go. If we don't have much activity that day, we're mostly going to be sitting at a desk and we're not going to get to the gym on that particular day, you don't need as much fuel, and our fuel being our carbohydrate-based foods, as someone who is going to be doing an hour or two's worth of exercise. So putting the right amount of fuel into your body for the right amount of exercise is important, and it is a daily equation. So thinking about, well, how much activity am I going to do today? And adjusting how much food you put in your breakfast bowl, for example, according to that. Now, there are other people who actually really don't enjoy or feel good when they have more of those carbohydrate-based foods. That's perfectly fine too. If you prefer to have more eggs and vegetables for breakfast, then maybe that's a great strategy for you. I would recommend having a little bit of those energy foods in the day. I alluded to before that our mood and our mood stability can be affected by our carbohydrate intake, and that is something I would like you to consider. Particularly very low carbohydrate style diets can have a bit of a mood effect, and if that's an issue that might affect you over the day, that can be a real problem. No one likes anyone being cranky, so having a little bit of carbohydrate may be helpful. Now that could be as simple as putting some corn into your omelette in the morning, or maybe adding a little bit of sweet potato to your salad at lunch. I'm not talking about necessarily eating a big bowl of pasta, for example. Now, I often get asked the question about snacking. Do I need to be snacking over the day? Another piece of research, and plenty of it has been done in this area, but a really simple piece of research. They got a quantity of food that could be consumed in one day, and they got two different groups of people. In one group, they gave them that food divided into 3 piles, so your typical breakfast, lunch, and dinner. In the other group, they got the same amount of food, but divided into 6 piles over the day. So the more of that snacking type option over the day. And they looked at each group's rate of weight loss. And what it actually showed, it was actually the same. It did not matter whether you ate 3 times a day or 6 times a day, provided that you ate the same amount of food, you got the same amount of weight loss over the whole day. So that's something else I would like you to consider. Are you someone that is better off with having just 3 meals a day because there's only 3 opportunities to eat? Maybe that's due to time. You struggle with time and don't necessarily have the time to snack. Perfectly reasonable. Then maybe the 3 meals a day for you is a better strategy. Now, for other people, they actually probably do better having more opportunities to eat over the day, simply because they satiate their hunger, I suppose, at multiple points over the day. So they don't go too long without eating. So you can choose the strategy that works best for you. I would recommend having something to eat around about every 6 hours when you're waking though. There does seem to be some evidence that shows that that tends to be more effective. Now, a lot of people, when I say that, will bring up the recent focus on some of the fasting style diets. Now, that may actually be a strategy that works for some people in terms of weight loss, but that is more of a specialized strategy, and I wouldn't say that everybody responds well to that. So if you are looking at one of the fasting style diets, where maybe the 2 and 5, for example, where we have 2 days of lower calorie intake and 5 days of higher calorie or moderate calorie intake, not higher, then that may be an effective strategy for you. But I would recommend having a well-designed program around that to ensure that you are getting adequate nutrients over the whole week. There is also some fasting style diets where you only eat for, say, 8 hours in the day and spend 16 hours of the day not eating. Now, for some people, they do actually find that quite effective. For other people, maybe not so much. So my recommendation would be to get some expert advice around that if you think that might be a good strategy for you. So, getting back to that weight loss side of things. Now, how can you be more effective? Some of the research would also show that your accountability is important. So getting together your support team. Now your support team might be a partner, might be your family, maybe it's your children. Children can be a great support team. If you talk to your kids about your goals and that you're wanting to be healthier, that you're wanting to be able to achieve this goal. So maybe it is that you've got a family goal of going on a ski trip, or maybe it's doing an Oxfam walk and you want to be able to perform. Then get the kids involved. Let them know what that goal is. It's great for kids to be able to see that you're achieving goals and that you're putting effort in, but they also can be really supportive. So when they might see some changes on the dinner plate, then they'll support you in doing that. They're also pretty good at pulling you up when you might be having a little bit of a slip up. And so, Mum, should you be eating that? Sometimes we don't want to hear it, but it can actually be really helpful to keeping us on track. Just having that little bit of extra encouragement and knowing that there's another set of eyes on you can be helpful. Another strategy that you might like to use is having some way of recording your food intake over the day. Maybe that's as simple as having pen and paper and you write down what you're eating over the day. In a diary or something along those lines. There's plenty of apps that you can use as well. For some people, they can be really effective. For some people, they get a bit caught up in the numbers and working out their macros and things like that. So that may not be the strategy for everybody, but certainly if you're interested in the numbers, you tend to respond really well to numbers and knowing where you should be, then that may well work for you. So that accountability. Maybe you need a buddy. Maybe it's a friend that can help you. Maybe it's your PT or a dietitian or a GP that can help you just be a check-in point. So how are you going with things? Are you keeping on track? What are you struggling with? How can we help? So sometimes that can be really effective. I know in my private practice, I might see someone every week or two for weight loss, but I also have patients that I don't see for 3 months or 6 months or even once a year, and that can still be effective. So it doesn't have to be expensive in order to access those health professionals. Sometimes it's just having them, knowing in the back of your head that you've got someone to ask questions, someone to check in with, and someone that's your support crew. There's nothing better than having someone that's loudly cheering and super happy that you've achieved your next goal. That can be really helpful to you having those milestones along the way. Now, the last thing that I want to touch on is our expectations in terms of weight loss. Now, you will certainly find information, you can Google it, and it will tell you that you can lose weight very quickly. But the reality is that quick weight loss is usually not actually fat loss. So if you're losing a couple of kilos a week or more, you have to expect that some of that weight that you're losing may not be body fat. It might be some water, it might be some muscle, and at worst, it could actually be some bone mass and bone density as well. Not ideal. So we do want to make sure that you are losing weight consistently as opposed to rapidly. So the research would show that successful weight losers actually lose weight around about 1 kilo a month. People go, Lauren, that is so slow. And I know. But what you've got to understand is that if you're losing 1 kilo every single month, over 12 months, that's 12 kilos. Now, if you lost 12 kilos in a year, you'd probably be pretty happy with that as a strategy. Now, some people will lose weight much quicker than 1 kilo a month. So it's not that that is the ceiling of the weight loss that you can achieve, but it is the consistent weight loss. You might lose 3 kilos in a month, maybe even 4 or 5 on a really good month. But as an average, if we look at 1 kilo a month, and if we achieve over and above that, then you're going to be pretty happy with that. Whereas if we set the goal of losing 6 kilos in a month and then you only achieve 3, now 3 is still a very good weight loss, but you're going to be disappointed because you had the expectation that you would lose 6 over that time. So in recapping what I've talked about today, it is important that we find a style of eating that suits you, that you like, and that you can keep up in the long term. If you need some help with that, certainly access some of the health professionals that might be able to help you. Second of all, be consistent. Looking at your goals, making sure that you can achieve them each and every month over a longer period of time. You might need a buddy, you might need some help with that so that you can check in. So using some tools and strategies so that you are effective and you have a way of keeping accountable. Even when the times get hard, you've got some way of keeping yourself on track. So, best of luck for your weight loss journey. I'm more than happy to help you. So if you'd like to comment, if you'd like to get in contact with me, then certainly you can do so. Eat Smart Nutrition is my business. So if you want to get in contact, you can certainly find us on socials or simply Google us. You can also write some comments below. I'm more than happy to help. Best of luck, and please let me know of your success. Thank you.